Hi guys, welcome to another Wing Wednesdays with me, Howard Wing, and him,
Adam Wing.
We know it's been a while.
How are we all doing? Today we're going to talk about, this is my channel, so today we're going to talk about pricing predominantly, but specifically when to increase your pricing and how to up your pricing over time.
And a little bit about
like that.
Price philosophy and things like that. We've just been having an in-depth
off-camera
philosophy,
chat. Yeah, I like it.
We're having a little off-camera chat about, you know, why does somebody buy an Apple computer over a Windows when they probably do a similar job. But anyway, digress. So
there's a full uncut version of this video going to my Patreon from Patreon.
Have you got a Patreon now?
That I've launched. So for all my Patreon members that might be watching this, the full version is over on Patreon, and if you've not checked that out, the link's below. But on the subject of pricing, I mean, my wedding journey from the start, first year, I maybe did a dozen weddings just trying to get myself out there. Then various things, the awards, couple of good weddings that I did propelled me to the following year. The second year I did 50 weddings, and then I've pretty much done 50 weddings every year since. But, apart from this year. But the price over time has also gone up. So I started off maybe my first few weddings were 500 quid, and then it went up to I think 900, and then I introduced packages, highlights package, full feature film package. Got up the second year when I was doing like nearly 50 weddings, I was up to like 1200 quid, then it went to 15, and it just went from there to the point where now I'm charging anywhere upwards of 2,500 on average. But it's kind of how I did that.
Yeah.
At what points in my progress did I make those increases, and how much did it increase by? Loads of factors to it, isn't there?
Lots of factors. You did everything in the perfect timeline. We discussed right at the start, didn't we? We had a plan of how much money you wanted to earn in 3 years and then in 5 years, and you got to the 5 years in 3 by the way that we did it, and it worked so well because nobody can start off charging £2,000-3,000 for a wedding straight away. It takes time, but maybe not as long as you think. And like I say, certain elements come into play without a doubt, and people get to know you a little bit as well. I think when you're 2 years in, they've seen your history, they've seen your Instagram, they've got to know you, they follow you on social media, they're a bit more invested in you, and there's more value there. People, and I say this all the time, it's not about the quality of your work. The quality is really important of a video, but it's not why people would book you. You know, because I know so many videographers that are amazing at what they do, and they don't get that much work. So yeah. I've always said this, it's not always about how, you don't have to have the best film to charge the most prices.
There's bang average videographers who fill the diary every year. So it's a balance.
So we're talking a little about, because in our group we have a private Facebook group, and we talk about pricing, and in our course we kind of guide people of, you know, we get asked all the time, when is a good time to put our prices up? What do you think we should increase them by? And what that time frame is. And then we talk them through the journey, don't we, of what they need to when they start, and these certain time frames to get where they want to be. You can pretty much be where you want to be in 2-3 years very, very easily.
Well, you can be depends what your goals are, but you can be in a very, very good place within 3 years, for sure.
You can be in a very good place in 1 year.
Yeah, of course.
In 1 year.
But in terms of, I mean, like for me, I never even needed to get a job in the end financially, but if you're already in a day job, for people starting out, you can certainly put yourself in a position to be quitting your day job within a year, no problem. That's
well, I think
very doable.
When you were going to start off with your proper day job, I think your starting salary was about £25,000, wasn't it? And It was like, well, wait a minute, I'm there now. I'm 6 months later. Why would I go into that job? And that was ideal with Adam, because he didn't have any expenses, no mortgages, no kids, no. So it was perfect. So there's probably a little bit more pressure on some people, or perceived pressure, where they've got a mortgage, they've got families to support, they're used to a certain amount of income coming in. It might be £30,000-40,000 to live their normal life. I wouldn't suggest them to quit the job and go, hammer and tongs like what you did at the start.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have those expenses. But yeah, when you're starting out, it's all about getting that experience under your belt and building up your network.
I think it's personal for everyone because it's a numbers game first and foremost. You want to look at your, as you said, some people have a 30 grand a year income that funds the lifestyle that they've got, and everyone's personal. It's a very personal and individual thing. Whatever your lifestyle costs per year, whatever your job's providing you, if you want to equal that amount before you quit your day job, then you just say it's 30 grand. I need 30 weddings at £1,000 each. So you can literally just work out how many weddings do I need to book and how much do I need to charge per wedding to be in the place you want to be. And then I very quickly got to that and matched my teaching salary, or what would have been, and then everything else was just a bonus. And this is where the wedding industry can be great because you can earn really good money from it.
Well, that's fair. That's quite the low end of the market. You know, £1,000 for a wedding video is not a lot of money for people to spend on a film if you're in the right areas and you're putting yourself in front of the right clients.
But that's my point. I think being is that you can very quickly get to £1,000 a wedding and be booking out loads of weddings. It's easy.
Without a doubt, so within a year.
For people that are starting out, I mean, we always advocate just going out and doing your first wedding for free or for a friend, or just get your first wedding under your belt, first couple of weddings for friends of friends, offer to do it for free, friends and family experience, etc. We always advocate that, but then your first couple are going to be, you might start charging anywhere between £300 and £500.
Yes, maybe when you're first starting out. Yeah.
Get a bit of portfolio under your belt, and then you want to be starting to think about packages, because obviously you can offer different packages which are going to cost different prices, so that's a different conversation. But just a standard kind of video package, highlights, film, ceremony, speeches. Once you've got your portfolio and you've dressed your website up and you've got an idea of your package, then you can be charging proper money, i.e. £1,000. I would say is a good starting point for your first 18 months.
Yeah, you know what? It's a beautiful journey, isn't it? So if you do everything in the correct order, you can get where you want fairly fast. Starting from fresh, you're getting out, you're getting the experience, you're getting the portfolio stuff. But in that time frame, you're working on your networks, you're making friends within the industry. You're getting inspired. Your films are getting better as you go along, and you keep going on this upward trajectory all the time. As long as you're focused on your end goal, whatever that end goal is for you, whether it be 50,000 a year or 100,000 a year. You can get there. Certainly. I firmly believe that, within a fairly short space of time. But that journey is brilliant because you start off with nothing, no experience. You get a bit, you move on, your films get better, you've got a better network, bang, then we've got more contacts.
It's really quickly at the start. Your trajectory is like that, and it kind of starts to plateau a little bit, but it doesn't have to. But very at the start, it's very steep because every wedding you do, you're going to be improving, your films are going to get better, and then the more your films improve, the better venues you're going to go to, because you're going to attract, you put your films improve, you put your prices up a little bit, you're going to attract better weddings and go to better venues, and then that in turn, because you're at better locations, will make your films look even better, because there's an element of your films where, like, the best filmmaker in the world couldn't make a Best Western in Bury look as nice as Tuscany. So
yeah, exactly.
That is still like the stuff that's out of your control, the location and the weather are factors that make films better, so that when you get to these better venues, your films look better, so you can charge more, so that in turn you're attracting better venues. So
and also don't forget you're actually documenting this journey all the way through, aren't you? You're using your social media for that.
Well, you should be.
Without a doubt. And then people will get tied into you and your story. So you have this period of a year, maybe 2 years, where you're really striving. You're documenting your story. You're building up your network, and then you might come to a point where you think you might have topped your prices out, and then it's like, then you've got to make the decision what you want to do. And it's I know we've been discussing this recently, haven't we, with certain things that's kind of cropped up with friends of ours. Potentially locked in fear, worried about testing other pricing. They've got to a point where they think they're only worth this, and couldn't charge any more. And straight off the bat, there's always another level where
of course,
there's somebody charging £5,000 a wedding who might be thinking, should I put them up to 10?
Regardless of what you're charging, watching this, whether you're at £1,000, £2,000, £3,000, whatever, there's always that question of how do I go to the next level, because there always is a next level, and how much by.
And you can guarantee there's somebody that's at that next level who's doing the film's quality exactly the same as what you're doing. And it's how do we get them bookings at that price? And that, again, that comes down, I think, massively to personal branding.
Well, let's talk about this kind of dead end or fear bubble or whatever you want to call it, that you get to a point where you might be charging whatever you're charging and think, well, I don't know if I can get any more out of this. Like, you know, I get enough bookings at the price that I'm at. Will people still book me? And this happens, I get this every time I push my prices up and you test the prices. And for the first few days, weeks, whatever, when you get inquiries, nobody's biting. And you get that initial kind of like, oh, maybe I've pushed it too far. And inevitably, if you've got to have the balls to ride it out, and it always has come good, touch wood, so far.
Well, I always think of it like this. Every one of those bookings that you've had, would have those people not booked you if you were, say, £250 more or £200 more? I would say, yeah, I think they probably, or at least 90% of would have still booked you if you were £200 more. Because they like you. They want you to do. This is why I talk about personal branding. They want to know that it's you turning up on their wedding and filming their wedding because they like you. Your film's a really good standard, but that other guy's a good standard over there. It might be a little bit cheaper than you, but they want you. And I think you always have to be building your personal brand and show the real you, and you know, so people get a bond with you even before they've met you.
It's the whole experience, and this is a lot of videographers don't show this off, but like kind of you should be documenting and highlighting on your social media your relationships with your couples, sharing testimonials, doing selfies with them, just sharing little, like, you know, if you follow each other on social media, and then you do the wedding day and you send out the film, and then afterwards you're still in touch with them, and it's this whole journey. And I think people see that and go,
part of the family, don't you?
Well, you know, I think people see that on our Instagrams, and it works for me versus another videographer who doesn't show any of that side. And couples must look at that and go, wow, it's a real, like, we want that guy because he seems to get on so well with his couples. And I think that justifies them paying a bit extra versus someone else who might be charging less. I think we have, because of people's relationships with money, or like you look towards your peers in the industry, and I remember you telling me to like look to these videographers for inspiration when I was starting out. And so you do, from the start, you look at other videographers' work and you see certain standards of video, and you compare yourself, and it's a good thing, like, because it's motivating, it's inspiration, but you're also comparing yourself to, like, well, these guys are like, their level of film is here, and they're charging this, so I can't charge the same because my work's not the same as theirs. So you kind of, going back to what you're saying about the personal branding, you kind of get sucked into looking at what someone else's work is like and what they're charging, and then you let that drive what you're charging and where you should be at. But it's not always the case, because you could be charging just as much as them because you're better at selling yourself, even if your work's not as good, or in some cases your work might be better and you don't feel like you can charge as much.
Everybody's getting to a similar level, isn't it? So, you know, we always talk about how do you get them bookings if everybody's works quite similarly and for the prices that you want, and it's this differentiation. How can I differentiate myself or my business to stand a bit above these guys, even though our work is the same?
What I mean is, I think, is because you get attached to someone else who you know is charging £3,000 and their work's at this level, you might think, well, I can't charge any more than that because that's the level. And you attach yourselves to what other people are charging, and the reality is maybe you could get more, and there's always going to be another level. It takes someone to push that and test it.
Listen, when I started, in the same with you as well, when I was charging £500 to start, and then I tested £1,000, I was like, oh my god, I've actually got busier at £1,000. I'd had that little bit of a journey time. People more sort of bought into me as a person and what I provide as a service. It seemed to add. People perceived it more value as each year went on. and they did. Things got better and got better and got better. But I got over that fear bit. I thought I'm just going to try it, and then it worked. But I knew secretly that there was somebody else charging twice as much as what I was charging at that time. And I thought, well, I know I can go there because he's there, and I do something similar to that person. But it's how to get there. Well, part of it is thinking, you know what, I'm just going to charge it and see what happens.
Yeah, try it.
But you can test your pricing, but you've got to have. I think we talked about it in the course, haven't we? It's when to do it. If you're getting inquiries 2 years down the line, they're the ones you test your pricing on, because you've got enough time. If you think you need to pull back because pricing is an issue, then you've got enough time to pull your price back a little bit and then build it up for when you're going into that year.
So this is the advice bit. You go, if you've got X amount of bookings, say you want to get 40 weddings every year, and you've got 30 for the following year before you've even got to that year, and you're nearly booked out for the year 6 months before you've even started it. That's when you know for the following year, well, I've got loads of bookings in. I'm comfortable with where I'm going to be at financially. I've got enough to live off. Now is the time to test. Or say you've got 2 weddings. I always do this. If I've got like a Friday and a Saturday, if someone comes in for the Sunday, it's like, well, I'm going to try a bit of it. Or if it's a bank holiday or something like that, or it's a Easter weekend or New Year's Eve or dates like that. It's like, well, do you know what? I'm just going to try it, because if I don't get it, then I've already got 2 gigs that weekend anyway. I've already got enough weddings for that year anyway. It's not the end of the world.
I tell you what, you'll be surprised. This is how your pricing can change, and
so you can test it when the risk is minimal, and you can chuck an extra 200, 300, 500 quid on, and you'll be surprised at the amount of people that come back and still want it.
You will be surprised, and you probably get the same amount, as what you did the year before.
Every time I've put my prices up, I'm still doing 50 weddings a year, and I keep trying. I'm putting my prices up the more, because I want to do less. I'm hoping that the more I put my prices up, the less weddings I'll book.
I know,
and the scales will tip. But I keep putting my prices up, and the numbers are staying the same. People are still wanting it.
Yeah,
which is a nice problem to have.
It's a great problem to have, but yeah. So don't be afraid to do that. Certainly, if you time it correctly, doesn't matter. You just try it. If it doesn't work, you do something different.
So say it's January, you're getting loads of inquiries. You're booked out for the year. Your year's looking good. The next year's started to book. You've started to book some in, and you get an inquiry for the following year for like the November or something. It's ages off. Then try it.
And don't feel bad about it. Know that you're giving something of massive value, and just go ahead and try it.
Here's another scenario. What happens if you've done a wedding for the brother of new inquiry, or you've done a wedding and then their sister inquires for the year after? Should you charge the same as you? Because if you charge the sister a different amount, more. She's going to go, well, my brother never paid that last year. So but people worry about this. People have the fear of like, well, I can't charge the other person more because I did their friend's wedding for this much.
Well, you'll never earn any money.
There is a fear of that though. Like, well, I don't want to charge them more because this is what I charge their mate. But you need to get past that and realise that actually the following year is a completely different scenario. They're getting married at a different place. Your work's going to be different, better. Your work should be better, and I think you get into your head thinking, well, I can't charge anymore because that's what the friends paid. But it's not necessarily the case at all.
If it's me, I just price it, and if I get,
if they come back and say, well, we don't have the budget, then that's
never
fine.
been questioned. But if they do, I just say, that's just what I charge now.
Yeah,
that's what I charge now. That's all you have to say.
People, I think my fear or people's fear would be if they come back and go, you never charged my friend that.
And say, I know, but that was last year. My prices have increased.
You don't have to be embarrassed to say, well, my prices have gone up. I'm offering slightly different packages. My work's different, and this is what I charge now. And if they don't go for it, they don't go for it. But it's just being brave, isn't it, to risk losing them sometimes. And I've had it where I've booked a wedding and I've gone in at like, it's going to be like, I remember hitting 2,000, and I'd be like, it's going to be £2,000, and like hit send, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if they're going to go for it, and then they come back like, yep, we'll have it straight away.
Like,
and in my head, I'm like, oh, probably could have got away with £2,500. I wonder how much they would have paid.
And listen, the thing is, there'll always be people there who can afford the top end prices, and there's always going to be people that can, you know. And this is why it's really important what the areas where you work, the network that you create around you, the venues that you go to. It keeps going up and up and up, and at the mid to high end, people expect to pay a certain amount for a film. And for me, if somebody said I'm going to come and film your wedding, it's £500, I probably won't book it because I won't think they were good enough. That's just the way I think.
Well, this is it.
And a lot of people do think like that.
I think the other attachment, because of the way I feel about what a wedding like. If it was me getting married, I sometimes think, well, if it was me, would I pay this much for my wedding video? But the thing is, some of the clients that you're going to be trying to book will have a completely different budget or a completely different mindset towards weddings than you have. Like we earn a certain amount generally. Like someone doing well in the wedding industry, a videographer doing X amount of weddings a year, will have a certain theory of how much a wedding video should cost, and it's normally based around what you're charging. Like I wouldn't pay any more than $3,000 for a wedding video, because to me that's a lot of money. But you've got to get out of that and be like, well, to the client that might be nothing.
I think you've got to try and get into your client mindset, and again,
you limit yourself based on what you think is expensive.
And this is the lesson that you can't think for somebody else. At the end of the day, what you think isn't necessarily what somebody else thinks. I've had it before where couples have said, "Oh my God, is that all you charge? Is that all you charge for all that? You're there all day and the DJ and everything just for that?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And other couples have said, "You're out of a budget. You're too expensive."
Yeah.
So what do you want to do?
You get both.
Where do you want to be? Do you want to be down here, or they think I'm too expensive, so I'm going to lower my prices? Or are you with this camp that knows they're getting amazing value at the price that you've quoted that somebody else thinks is too expensive? You want to be. This is where you want to be. You want to be in this area.
You test your new prices. Say you go from 2,000 to 2,500, and you make the £500 jump overnight, and you test it, and you don't get any bites after a few weeks. You can always pull it back a bit. Or what I like to do is when I offer. If anyone, you get that message of like, oh, it's a bit out of budget, is there anything you can do? Is there any kind of discount we can get? And I always have extras like drone operator, second shooters, teaser films, little extra add-ons that I offer. So rather than discounting my prices, I throw in little extra incentives, because some people will have the budget for the original price. They're just trying to do a deal. Like,
they'll still book you.
Some people will just try it on for the sake of trying it on. So if you go, well, I can't lower the price, but I can offer a teaser film, and you know a little 30-second Insta edit or something like that, and you can give them a bit of extra incentive, then they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, cool.
If I want something and I try and get a deal on it, and there's no deal to be had, I still book it.
Yeah.
And you got to think, well, have they only booked me because I've offered a little bit of extra? I've dropped some cash. They'll still book you. The fact they're even asking you means they're going to want to book you. You know, I think it's been said recently, somebody who charges really cheaply is devaluing the industry. Well, it couldn't be any further from the truth. Part of the way that I've set my pricing for myself, I've always wanted to be at least double or not far off it what my nearest competition is. I want to be so much more expensive than them. And that's not mean I've got less bookings. It just means it intrigues somebody, I think. They're like, why is that person charging twice as much?
There's a perceived value in if you're £3,000 and the other person is £2,000. It's like, well, why? And even subconsciously, they might be justifying it in their head, going, actually, yeah, his website is slightly better. And they kind of, because you're charging more,
then they start to come up
psychology
with ideas,
of like, oh yeah, actually his films are a little bit better.
Well, you've had this over the years in careers when people have sort of said, oh, this person's charging much less than him and he's cocking up the industry. He's taking bookings from me because he's charging.
Well, this is the other point
that is absolutely so far from the truth. For me, it's been brilliant having somebody a lot cheaper than me, and I've really wanted them to stay cheap. I don't ever look at that person and think he's taking my bookings. because that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah. There is, I don't know how much you see of this, but in the videography industry and all these Facebook groups, there's a real opinion. Like, a lot of people feel that unless you're charging $5,000 upwards, you're really devaluing the industry. And there's that phrase of like, when the rising tide raises all boats sort of thing. And it's like, we should all be pushing this much and putting the prices up across the board and educating couples and stuff like that.
Well, that's never going to happen, because there's always going to be someone charging 200 quid for a wedding film. There's always going to be somebody charging £3,000. Doesn't mean the person who charged £3,000 is not going to get the work.
Where the ceiling is, there's always going to be someone willing to do it for cheaper.
Yeah, and I embrace the fact there's people cheaper, and they're not. If people are interested in me, they're going to book me. They're going to want to know more. They're going to check out me, see how much more value that I'm giving, or what the difference is. Well, this is you can't compare somebody who's 300 quid to £3,000 as far as the work goes. He's bound to be better, a lot better. But there's other reasons why people would pay that higher price, and I always love that comparison.
Yeah, you're paying for the experience.
I think I like. Listen, it's personal preference what you want to charge, but don't worry about. There's loads of people charging much less than what I'm charging, so they're going to take all my bookings. That just isn't the case. Well, if they are taking your bookings, then you're doing something wrong. Either you're not.
And again, there's this other misconception that because especially happens with people that have been established for a long time, and they've gotten used to every year a certain amount of bookings just kind of falling in the lap, if you will, and then all of a sudden it starts to dry up, and they're like, oh, it's all these new young'uns charging less, and they're taking my work. It's not your work. You don't have a divine right to the work.
You don't have a divine right.
There's nobody taking your work,
and you don't have a divine right to tell anybody else what they should be charging either.
Well, this is I think this is a really important point, is that wherever you are in your journey, whatever you want to be charging, don't worry about what anyone else is charging. Don't worry about feeling like you've got to appeal to the industry because you're scared of devaluing it. Don't worry about charging less than somebody, because they're at different stages, at different situations. Always be pushing. We want to, encourage people to push the prices, but don't be feeling guilty because you are charging less. Don't be feeling like you're devaluing it for someone else, because that's got nothing to do with you. That's on them. But also, if you're the person that's looking at these other people charging less and feeling like, rather than feeling like they're ruining it for you, you should be just focusing on your stuff. Put your blinkers on and just focus on your own. Don't worry about what anyone else is charging, basically.
Yeah, in either camp. If you're comfortable with charging £500 a wedding and doing 100 weddings a year, and that's where you want to be.
That's it, on both sides.
That's great. That's
don't worry about what everyone else is charging and feeling like you've got to get to that. But don't worry about someone that's charging cheaper than you either. I feel like the videography in weddings is getting more popular anyway. The perceived, like the what brides expect it to cost is going up. I think couples are willing. The more videos becoming popular, even now, it's gone in recent years. It's gone way up.
I think
even now it's still rising in popularity. And I think brides are still willing to pay more and more and more. So
I think if you'd have asked me 5 years ago about couples and filmmakers, I would say not many of them were that bothered. But I think over the last couple of years, sitting down chatting to my couples, it becomes a priority. It's become more of a priority. To get. I think
people are expecting and are willing to pay more as well now. Like £3,000 a couple of years ago seemed like a really high-end price for a videographer, whereas now there's a lot of people charging that in the UK. It seems to be a lot more attainable, acceptable, and then in another year it might be £4,000. But again, that's only when you think about. That's because you're attaching yourself to what you should be charging based on what someone else is charging.
Exactly.
So even I'm doing it now. I'm like, well, everyone else is charging £3,000, so that's got to be where I get to. The other specific tip that I did with pricing was when every time I won the wedding awards and entering the wedding awards, I remember Johnny Draper, when I won the newcomer in the industry awards, he came up to me and was like, you can put your prices up tomorrow because you've won the award. So there's like, going back to when is the right time to put your prices up? Well, as we've said, the right time is to test your prices is when you've got X amount of bookings in and you feel comfortable and you feel safe enough to do it. But also, I feel like winning awards, or if you do a high-end celebrity wedding or something, you get published in a magazine or something.
It's social proof, isn't it?
Those are moments where you can go, do you know what? I've just won an award, so that's a bit of confidence for brides and grooms. I can put my price up now.
Yeah, this is why we use reviews and we use testimonials, and it's things like winning awards and shouting about that. It's social proof that give your couples confidence in booking you. You know, they know they've got a real expert in the industry. That's why we're a big advocate for awards or anything you can attach yourself to if you're featured in magazines or something that's going to elevate you from the rest of the competition. That is again another good time to maybe up your prices. There's lots of things you can do along the way with upping your prices.
But then you get into the camp of like, well, do you have your prices on or off your website? And like, how do you approach? Do you send them a price list from the start, or do you get them on the phone? And like, it's not just about putting your prices up and expecting the bookings to come in. There's still ways that you can, as we've said, it becomes about selling yourself, and you put your prices up, but you sell it to the couple in the right way.
This is why
this is a whole different conversation. Hopefully that was helpful to some of you, and if you have any questions, then drop them in the comments and we'll answer them.
And you know what, I'm sure it's all subjective, isn't it? I'm sure everybody does have comments and they've got their own journeys and their own ideas on this. This is just our ideas and our journeys, what's happened with us with our pricing.
Yeah, but
it'd be great to hear what you guys have been up to.
The important thing for me to get across is not to worry about what anyone else is doing and what anyone else is charging. And keep pushing your own goals and focus on what you're doing.
Do your own thing, march forward, and may we all live happily ever after.
The end.
The end.
Goodbye, like and subscribe and all that stuff.
Oh yeah. Hit the bell.
Thanks for watching.
Is that what they say? Hit the bell.
We'll see you next time.
See you guys.